Hello and welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed the IDEO shopping cart video and that it gave you a little bit more of a sense of what the design thinking process is all about. In this video, Empathy in Depth, we're going to focus in a little bit on that first stage of design thinking, that empathy stage, that understanding piece. But before we do that, I have a little warm-up activity for you. So if you can grab a sheet of paper and a pen or pencil or marker, that would be great. And what I'm going to do is to ask you to come up with as many questions as you can about this pencil. I'll give you 30 seconds or so, but I'd like you to write down all of the questions that you can think of, all of the questions that you might have about this pencil. And I'll keep track of time here, so you don't need to worry about that. Just scribble down any question whatsoever that you might have about this pencil. Ready, set, go. Okay, another 10 seconds or so. Try to come up with one or two other questions. Any questions about this pencil? Okay, time is up. Now what I'd like you to do is to imagine that you are a professor of ancient history. So put yourselves into the shoes, into the mind of a professor of ancient history. With that mindset, what questions might you ask about this pencil? I'll give you 15 seconds or so. Okay, now I would like you to imagine that you are a Pulitzer Prize winning author. Put yourselves into the shoes, into the mind of a Pulitzer Prize winning author. What questions might you ask about this pencil? Okay, now I want you to imagine that you are a chemical engineer. As a chemical engineer, what questions might you ask about this pencil? Okay, now I'd like you to imagine that you are a lawyer. As a lawyer, in the shoes, in the mind of a lawyer, what questions might you ask about this pencil? And finally, I want you to imagine that you are a toddler. As a toddler, a 3 or 4-year-old, what questions might you ask about this pencil? Okay, so hopefully you were able through all of that to come up with a good few questions about this pencil. I'm afraid I don't have the answers for you right now, but hopefully you're able to come up with a lot of different questions about the pencil. And maybe especially when you put yourself into the shoes or into the mind of somebody else. And this is exactly something that can make empathy really difficult, empathy really challenging. Anna East Nin said, "We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are." And a lot of times using this design thinking process, when we're trying to go out and learn about a problem area, we tend to be very much in our own minds. We tend to, see things, interpret things based on our own backgrounds, our own experiences. And that's something that can make empathy really challenging. Something else I'd like you to keep in mind as you look ahead towards undertaking design thinking is to not fall in love with your first idea. Don't fall in love with your first idea. And this can be a really hard one because you've come into the Ideas Academy with an idea, of course. But this design thinking process where you kind of take the step back, you undertake empathy to learn as much as you can about the problem area within which your solution exists is really important. So that making sure in the first case that, you're not going out with your own background, your own ideas, preconceived ideas, influencing how you undertake the process. And also really key is just to set aside your own solution, any preliminary solutions, ideas that you have, put those to the side to begin. And just to remind us where we are looking at the design thinking process. So it's this 5-stage process where you begin with empathy, the observations, the interviews, the research, go big, and then focus in on a specific problem to be solved. You're trying to identify trends and patterns in the information you've gathered and the insights that you've gained in order to focus in on a really specific problem to be solved. Once you've done that, you go big again, the brainstorming, the creativity, trying to come up with as many different types of ideas, distinct, diverse solutions as you can before you select one, maybe more to prototype and test. So in this video, again, we're going to be focusing in on that first stage of empathy. There are a few components to empathy, including observations, interviews, research, and something called body storming. And you will have seen all of these displayed, demonstrated in the IDEO shopping cart video. And we'll go through them now one by one. So in the early stages of design thinking, you are looking to understand experiences and perspectives. You're working towards identifying needs and problems to be solved. And I just want this to be really clear. This is the information gathering stage in relation to your problem area. You are not yet looking for solutions, whether it's validation of ideas or solutions you might already have, or new ones from the people that you speak with. Empathy is all about trying to get a sense of what people really think, feel, and do. So one component, one part of empathy is observations. So you're going out, you're observing things in action. You might take photos, you might draw things, scribble down notes. We call it using stealth mode to observe behavior. So you're a fly on the wall, sort of watching from afar. And I'm kind of following on from the Anais Nin quote that you are recording what you see, not your interpretation of what you see. I'm going to share a quick little story about the importance of observation. And it comes from a hospital that approached a design firm, and they said, we need a device like this so our nurses can record patient information while they're sort of engaging with a patient at the patient's bedside. They said, we need a device like this. The design firm said, okay, leave that with us for now. And the design firm went in the hospital and spent hours, days, and weeks making observations. They observed how the nurses interacted with the patients. Something that those designers observed, something that they saw, was that a lot of times while a nurse was at a patient's bedside, they were using one of their hands to either do a procedure, whatever it was they were helping the patient with, and the other of their hands to comfort the patient, to hold the patient's hand. So one hand was very busy, engaged in medical procedures. The other hand oftentimes was being used to comfort the patient. So the design firm had their aha moment. Remember, we heard about aha moments with the toothbrush, the new toothbrush for Oral-B. This design firm had their aha moment in seeing that the nurses were using one of their hands to comfort the patient. And they thought, well, the hospital thinks they want something like this, kind of touchscreen device, much like an iPad that could be used to record patient information. But this won't actually work because the nurses in reality only have one hand available to them. So what the design firm pitched back to the hospital, what they prototyped, what they showed to the hospital and ultimately produced was something like this, a one-handed device that the nurses could use to record patient information. Now, it doesn't look as cool and modern and sleek as that touchscreen device, but it actually met the needs of the users. It worked for the nurses to record that patient information while they were with the patient. That's the importance of observations, of seeing with fresh eyes. Another component to empathy is interviews, conducting interviews. And when you're going out to talk to people about a problem, trying to get information, what they experience, it's really important to think about how you frame the questions that you're asking. Of course, open questions will reveal more. Henry Ford once said, "If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." Another little story for you, this one on the importance of interviews. So Heathrow Airport was undergoing a major overhaul, big renovation of their Terminal 5. And the architects, the designers, everybody was making their contributions, doing their good work. The designers went in and started making observations. We learned in the last little anecdote about the importance of observations. Something that they saw, something they observed, was that the bathrooms were really busy. They were overcrowded. There's people going in and out, in and out. There's some people hanging out in them, spending a lot of time in them. And they thought, well, in this new terminal, once it's renovated, we think it needs a lot more bathrooms. Something that they noticed in particular was that the bathrooms in the old terminal were full of older people, of elderly people. I thought, well, that kind of makes sense. Older people tend to maybe have to go to the bathroom a lot more. So yeah, perfect. We'll propose new terminal should have more toilets. Well, it wasn't until one of them thought to talk to some of these people that the real insight came. So a little bit awkward, designers going in and asking people inside the bathrooms, why are you here? But what did they learn? What did they learn from that question, why are you here? Well, they learned that for a lot of people that were kind of hanging out in the bathrooms, and again, in particular, maybe older people, they weren't in there because they had to go to the toilet. They were in the toilets, in the bathroom, because it was quieter, away from the hustle and bustle and chaos of the terminal. They were going into the bathrooms where it was quiet. They could hear the announcements over the loudspeaker, announcements about gate changes, about found items, lost items, found items, about delayed flights. So the need of some of these older people that were going into and hanging out in the bathrooms wasn't actually to go to the toilet, it was for information. So the designers scrapped their plans for loads more toilets, which was actually going to be really expensive. And instead they proposed to the airport that they install more information screens. So that's why conducting interviews, talking to the people that you're designing for is really, really important. That little question, why? Who's really good at asking why? Toddlers. I forget the exact number, but toddlers ask why, I think it's a few dozen times a day. So we might say, get into the mindset of a toddler when you're going out to do empathy. Be curious, ask why. Try to get as much information, all of the stories, all of the information, all of the insights that you can. Another component of empathy is body storming. Body storming is when you put yourself in the place of the user. You might have seen this in the IDEO shopping cart video. Some of them were pushing the shopping trolley around the grocery store and seeing, what is this experience really like? Kind of with the beginner's mindset, almost pretending like they'd never used a shopping cart before. Oh, actually, it's kind of hard to turn it around in tight corners. Actually, this. So they learned loads through that body storming, putting yourself in the place of the user. MIT University over in the States has come up with this, they call it the empathy suit, an empathy suit. Agnes, the Age Gain Now empathy system. And this is something that young designers in the university there put on, they wear it when they're trying to design for an older person. It's meant to really, truly help you walk in the shoes of an older person. So it has earplugs that reduce hearing. It has goggles that blur vision and kind of make the vision a bit yellowed. It has different bungee cords that make it harder to move. They restrict your movement, so you go up and down stairs and really get a sense of what it's like to walk in the shoes of an older person. So again, empathy, your observations, your interviews, we saw that in the IDEO shopping cart video, the research going online, what information can you get that's out there already, the body storming, putting yourself in the place of the user. These are all really important things to do as part of empathy, understanding your problem area. So again, with this video, you're going to have an associated task, which is to watch a video. It's called the Lucky Ironfish video. It's a short one. I think it's just 4 or 5 minutes long, but it gives a nice overview of this empathy process where the designer is going out to try to learn as much as he can about the problem. There's also a few nice lessons in there about learning from failure and iteration that are all part of the design thinking process. So it's a really good one, really inspiring, and I hope that you'll enjoy it. And we'll see you for the next one.